a guy that's just a wonderful family man, a devoted husband to his wife Beth, who was a super gal in her own right, a Christian, and in my opinion, one of the best coaches that ever coached the great game of football, Coach Lou Holtz.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Whoa. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Nice introduction, Coach. I have a lavalier mic on. I don't know. Can you all hear me okay in the back of the room? Okay. Very, very good. I guess maybe I better. Can you hear me better now? Okay. Number one, I just can't say enough great things about Rick Frisano. I played for him when he was an assistant coach at Kent State. I coached for him. And I'm here because of him. I owe that individual so much, and when the gentleman called me about coming here, I said, if Rick Frisano recommends it, I'll be there. I owe so much to him. And so I came up here because of Rick Frisano, but after I got all the information and started reading about the Thomas More, I would have been here anyway. What you're doing is absolutely tremendous, and I'm glad I became aware of it. And, you know, it's really ironic to be around all these lawyers. You know, my son's a lawyer. My son-in-law's a lawyer. They both graduated from Notre Dame. Matter of fact, when my son Kevin passed the bar exam in Florida, he said that's the first bar he passed since he turned 18. But true story, I said to him, I said, what's the most important thing you learned in law school? He said, Dad, a professor told me my first year, always remember this. If somebody's going to go to jail, make sure it's your client and not you. I said, that's good advice. You want to make sure you follow that. And it's really great to see so many spouses here. I say to you sincerely, if you want some great advice, listen to your spouse. Nobody knows you any better, loves you any more, wants to see you succeed anymore, or be any more honest with you. My wife's not only somebody I love dearly, she's my best friend. When I talk about my wife, I immediately think when I coached Ohio State under Woody Hayes. We were fortunate enough to win the national championship at Ohio National Bank. Had a big billboard, I'll never forget it. It said, behind every successful person stands a very surprised mother-in-law. And boy, is that true in my case. But in any event, it's just great to see so many spouses here. And I couldn't help but think, here I am in Ann Arbor. I get nervous just being in Ann Arbor. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but I was from Ohio. I was raised in Ohio, went to Kent State and coached at Ohio State. As a history major, I don't know if you're aware of it, but Ohio and Michigan are the only two states to ever actually go to war, call out the militia, and blood was shed. It's true. Now, it was all over a boundary dispute of Toledo. Now, history doesn't record who won the war, but we have to assume Michigan did, because I can't believe we ever fought to keep Toledo. There's no way in this world. And I can't help but remember in 1989, true story, we opened up here with the University of Michigan up here in Ann Arbor. I was telling our football team how difficult a challenge that would be. Boy, our players reported they had great enthusiasm. That was a game Rocket Ishmael ran 2 kickoffs back for a touchdown. But that's not relevant. But during the preparation, boy, the players were excited. Then they got tired. They got hot, just like in this organization. Boy, you get people get excited, you know, and then after a while they lose sight of it. And boy, our players were just going through the motions. I walked out to practice one day. I called them up and I said, man, I called Bo today. Now, I really didn't call Bo, but I told the players I did and said, hey, man, I called Bo today. And I said, Bo, are your Michigan players tired? He said, yeah. I said, Bo, we're tired too. I'll tell you what, you give Michigan players a day off today, and I'll give Notre Dame players a day off. And they started high-fiving one another and getting excited, and I looked at him, I said, Bo said no. Bo said he doesn't care how tired you are. He's going to work his team 2 hours. I don't want to practice you 2.5, but if we're going to beat Michigan, we got to. And we had a pretty good practice. Worked so well that day, I walked out the next day, walked up and said, hey, man, I called Bo today. And He looked at me real funny. He said, "What'd Bo say?" I said, "Bo, your players beat up and sore?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Bo, we're two. So I tell you what, Bo, you practice Michigan players in shorts, and I'll practice the Notre Dame players in shorts." I said, "Men, you won't believe this." But Bo said no. Bo said he's going to scrimmage. I don't want to scrimmage. I feel your pain, but if we're going to beat Michigan, we got to scrimmage. And don't get mad at me, but you remember this when you see Bo on September 12th. That's guy doing, not me. True story. I did it 4 straight days. I walked out the 5th day, and before I could say a word, one of our players said, "Hey, Coach, I called Bo today." I said, "What'd Bo say?" He said, "Bo said his players eat steak and lobster." So, but it is great to be here, ladies and gentlemen. I really think what you're doing is so important. I'm a great believer in family and faith. And I'm a great believer in family and faith because I've seen what it does in people's lives. And I don't believe you can have one without the other. And we go crazy sometimes. To me, ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing in this world that we must be able to give the youth of America is respect for authority. If you don't have respect for authority, and somewhere along the line, you are not going to be able to hold a job, you're not going to be able to lead people. And you should learn that respect for authority in the home. And it should be reinforced in the schools, but so many times it's not. And then when people get to college, they don't have respect for authority, respect for the law, respect for elders, respect for teachers. And that has to be taught in the family. Now let me make sure I have this correct. A guy went to jail for damaging and destroying an egg in an eagle's nest. And somebody can have a late-term abortion and that's all right. You know, there's just some things that don't work. There's some things that are absolutely crazy. I believe that a family is the most important thing in this world. And I personally believe this country was blessed because of our devotion to the family and to God. I believe that in the bottom of my heart. And then when I see what's happening, and I'm like everybody else, I get upset when I read where they're trying to now, it's not Merry Christmas. It's Happy Holiday, or whether it be the 10 Commandments, or whatever it happens to be. And I don't know if you're aware of the background of Sir Thomas More, but when I knew I was coming up here, I did a little bit of research. And Sir Thomas More in the mid-15th century was the second most powerful person in England, only to the king. He was also a lawyer. He was a judge, a justice. Very, very successful. But he also was a martyr. He gave up his life. He was martyred because of his faith. And the last thing he said is, "I have to be honest to my conscience and to God." Now here's what really struck me about that. Here is a guy who had it made and gave up his life because he believed in a cause. And what upsets me the most is we have people afraid to stand up and speak because it's politically incorrect. Well, thank God I'm old enough and I don't have to worry about being politically correct. I just worry about being correct. I'm so old I don't even buy green bananas anymore. And when I go out to dinner, they take my credit card before I order. But you know, that's fine. But you know, my life isn't very complicated, and I try to keep it basically simple.